Take the scorn to wear the horn, it was your crest when you was born. Your father's father wore it, and your father wore it too. Ha! Hallantoe, jolly rumbelow, away we're up, long before the day, oh. To welcome in the summer, to welcome in the May, oh. For summer is a-coming in and winter's gone away, oh. Hail and welcome back to Dartmoor, and today we're in this beautiful wildwood again, and we're here in the ancient kingdom of Dumnonia, where the Celtic Dumnoni tribe once roamed. I'm River Oak, and I'm a druid of these parts, and today we're going to take our next steps around the Pagan Wheel of the Year. Now, if you've been journeying with us, you'll know what we're all about. But if not, well, here's a brief summary. So, just to recap before we start, a lightning tour of the Wheel of the Year. This is a cycle of 8 celebrations that each around 6 weeks apart, and it melds together the 4 major solar events of the year, that's the solstices and the equinoxes, with 4 ancient agricultural celebrations, each of which mark a really key time in the old North European farming calendar. And we kick off in the 12 o'clock position at Yule. Yule is the winter solstice. It's the longest night and the shortest day of the year. By Imbolc, it's still kind of chilly, but we're seeing the first signs of spring, maybe the occasional snowdrop. In the 3 o'clock position, the spring equinox, when night and day are in equipoise. That is Ostara. It's also called Albanila in the Druid tradition. And now we're really beginning to get a feel for spring, aren't we? And there's wonderful things that are happening, particularly hares laying eggs. If you want to find out more about that, you'll have to keep watching. Next up comes Beltane. Oh, blissful Beltane, a time of bonfires and bonking, when we're going to embrace each other, and the F word, fertility. Well, whatever did you think I was going to say? And no, you can't just fast forward to Beltane. And after all that excitement, it's going to be time to lounge about and enjoy midsummer, the longest day, the shortest night, with lovely, balmy, sunny days beside the seaside. Ice cream, anyone? But before long, we'll have to get up and do some work, because it will be Lunasa, the first harvest, the harvest of corn, barley and wheat. Next we've reached the autumn equinox, a time again of equipoise between day and night, when we start to enter the dark half of the year. This is Mabon, or if you're a druid, you're going to know it as Alban Elfed. It's the second harvest, the time when we bring in the fruit and the nuts. Next up, it's Samhain, that magical time of the year when the veil between this life and the other world is very thin. So thin that we can communicate with the dead, and in fact they may well just come a-walking around. Spooky! And then we're back where we started. We are back at midwinter, the winter solstice. It's Yule again. So now we've reached Beltane. Now the Celts only had 2 seasons in a year. They had winter and they had summer, and Beltane marked the very beginning of summer, and that, if you were a Celt, was more than enough reason to celebrate. Yay! Yay indeed, for the days are certainly drawing out. The sun is shining in the heavens, and many flowers are mimicking him down here on the earth, whilst in the hedgerows and all about the moor, the magical hawthorn is in blossom. Woodlands are alive with the song of birds and suffused with the scent of wild garlic and bluebells, the latter being a symbol of everlasting love. Yes, love is most certainly in the air. So as Celine Dion once said,
let's talk about love.
And indeed we will. But darling, there's something we really do need to discuss. You see, the time has come to bear all. Okay, I'll stop there, at least for now, but there is a matter that we have to get out there in the open. Yes, many myths, legends and traditions are of their time, and Beltane is no exception. Everything appears to be very heterocentric, binary, and some would say, boring. But one benefit of embracing an ever-evolving neo-pagan spirituality is that we are happy to leave historical dogma and discrimination back where it belongs, firmly in the past. So today, Druids celebrate and savour the sparkling spectrum of sex and sexuality. So if something gets a big thumbs up from everyone involved, then it also gets a big thumbs up from the pagan community. Indeed, our bodies are gifts to be explored and enjoyed. So it's a big thumbs down to conformity, convention, rules and repression. So now that we've cleared that up, it's time to explore and enjoy some of those old traditions. The law of lust, of longing and of love. And where better to start than with old Horny himself. So who exactly is old Horny? Or to be precise, the horn god. Or to be less precise, several different horn gods. Now, horns have long been a symbol of phallic energy, so the horn god represents the wild, instinctive male energy of the forest. And he's been represented in many ways over time. As Pan, he is wild and wanton, a lusty lover for whom anything goes. And I won't mention the goats. When he wasn't feasting, drinking or playing his pipes, he was, to be polite, plying the plough. And no field was out of bounds to him. Yes, his libido had no limits, and he was never happier than when he was getting his hoof over anyone and anything with a pulse. Well, best move rapidly on to Cernunnos, Lord of the Wildwood, a multifaceted god, protector, hunter, and spirit of life, death and resurrection. Cernunnos not only cares for the forest, but also guides the souls of the dead to and from the Summerlands. And I think you'll agree that's quite a busy schedule. The foliate face motif, now commonly known as the Green Man, also represents natural abundance, together with the cycle of life, death and rebirth. His smiling, spewing choppers can be found all across the globe and throughout all time. Yes, even within Christian churches. And never forget Kevin Costner, also known as Robin Hood. Now he was probably of noble birth, maybe the Earl of Huntingdon, but he became a rather famous outlaw, all-round good guy, who roamed Sherwood Forest and was its guardian, righting wrongs and protecting its people. Many feel that Robin is another incarnation of the Lord of the Wildwood. In Wicca, there is also a Lady of the Wildwood, a goddess, equally instinctive and glad to celebrate her womanly sexuality. It is the union of Lord and Lady in a divine greenwood marriage that brings fertility and fresh life to both forest and field. And boy, is that something to celebrate. Now, Beltane celebrations began at dusk on the eve of May Day. Village bonfires were lit and the young men and women went a-maying to the sound of drums and cowbells. The men collected branches of greenery whilst the girls picked wildflowers and blossoms to make garlands. Hawthorn, which is of course also known as May, was a particularly prized hair adornment as its blossom was associated with, yep, you've guessed it, sexuality. But they didn't retire to the woods just to collect. No. They went to connect. For this would be a night of wild lovemaking. And by the time they returned at first light, grass-stained and maybe a little dishevelled, well, there was many a maiden who would never be quite the same again. So the next day would see a flurry of hand fastings. Now, hand fastings are a pagan ritual. It's what happened before marriage, and it still happens today. And it's a way of a community acknowledging that two have become one. But there's a get-out clause. Because if that first flush of love isn't sustained, well, the couple can simply come back to the very same spot after a year and a day and simply part, with no hard feelings or expensive legal fees. So long, sucker! Aside from this, young lovers would greet the dawn by scattering flowers on thresholds and windowsills to bring protection and blessings to the home, a tradition known as bringing in the May. Younger children would also process with garlands and the hope of a few pennies. And now the festivities began in earnest, presided over by a May Queen, a young girl who was crowned for the day and who sat atop a floral throne. This was a time when communities came together to feast and to flirt, to sup and to sing, to dance and to delight in disorder. And then of course there would be Morris dances. Now the dancers would have been up before first light, and they would have climbed a high hill and danced up the sunrise of May Day. And then they would dance all through the day, entertaining the crowds, and they'd be accompanied by a fool, by a Morris beast, and by a Betsy, which is a man in drag. Now, nobody really knows where Morris dancing came from, or how indeed it became the national dance of England. But Sir James Fraser, well, he said that it was an ancient pagan ritual dance, and that the pulsing beat of the musicians and the thudding of the dancers' feet drove away demons and awoke the earth spirits, so ensuring the fertility of the land and a bountiful harvest. Now, there's not a lot of evidence really to support that, but having been a Morris dancer for 25 years, well, hey, I kind of like the idea. But the Morris was not the only dance to be had. No, central to the festivities stood the maypole, high, brightly coloured and adorned with greenery, flowers and herbs. And although few realise it nowadays, the pole represented, well, a rather impressive phallus, planted deep into the womb of Mother Earth. To dance around it was definitely not for school children. No, no, no. This was a mating rite and a wild invocation of fertility. Children were, however, allowed to parade with Jack in the Green, a frame festooned with foliage, in return for some more pennies. Yes, the children, they did love their pennies. But in cities, this activity was hijacked by chimney sweeps, for their income dried up with the approach of the fine weather. At the end of the day, Jack would be stripped of his green, an indication that, unlike diamonds, the wildlife for summer is not forever, and the seasonal cycle will in due course turn towards the death and decay of winter. But hey, there may be trouble ahead, but while there's music and moonlight and love and romance, let's face the music and dance. And nowhere more than in the North Cornish fishing community of Padstow, where the tradition of the Obby Oss may well have been celebrated since antiquity. School's out, and the villagers, dressed in white, escort a rather sinister-looking horse through the narrow streets to the pulsing beat of drum and squeeze-box, and led by a teaser. Periodically, the Oss pauses and appears to die, slumping to the ground, only to spring back to life with the coaxing of the teaser and the cry of the crowd. It is said that any girl caught under the skirts of the Oss will be pregnant within a year, and many still do disappear there with more than a giggle on their mind. Now, the medieval Christian church was rather squeamish about sex and sexuality, particularly the concept of women having desires or needs. Why do you think Mary was a virgin? So they decided to take the horned god of the pagans and Photoshop him into the devil. And hell and damnation certainly awaited anybody who did that sex thing for pleasure rather than procreation. And that neatly takes us back to the subject of fire. Beltane, or Beltane if you're Irish, literally means bright fire, and what brighter fire is there than the sun? So some believe that Beltane was named after the Celtic sun god Belenus. And fire has always been central to celebrations of Beltane. Traditionally, huge bonfires were erected high on hilltops. 9 sacred woods were employed in their construction, and the blazes could be seen for miles around. Today this tradition continues in many places, notably Calton Hill in Edinburgh. And as the fires began to diminish, folk would leap the flame 3 times, ensuring fertility and good fortune. Glowing embers would then be taken into every homestead and used to relight previously extinguished hearth fires. In Scotland, cattle and sheep would be driven between 2 fires in order to ward off diseases and evil spirits before being led to high pasture sheilings for the summer months. But Beltane was never all about fire. No, water was important as well. And the dew of May Day morning was believed to hold special properties. Girls bathed in it, men washed their hands in it, everyone walked barefoot in it, and sickly children were wrapped in cloth that had been soaked in it. And if there was a shortage of dew, then folk would simply travel to holy wells, where they would walk around in a sunwise direction before dipping the child 3 times. A torn piece of clothing known as a clutie would be hung from a nearby bough as an invocation for health and healing. And even today, cluties and offerings are still commonplace around the many sacred wells in my beloved Cornwall. Oh, and one last thing. Beltane, like Samhain, is a time when the veil between our mundane world and the other world, by whatever name you choose to call it, is very thin, and our ancestors may well join us in our celebrations. As may the fairy folk, yes, the fae, the ancient ones, not winged and cutesy, but magical, mysterious, and frequently mischievous at this time of wild waywardness. Weren't you in Harry Potter? And there you have it, Beltane, characterised by union of male, female, all shades of gender and none. A union of physical and mystical, of fire and water, of sun and rain, of earth and sky, of rationality and instinct, these energies combining to bring life in all its diversity and abundance. Well, my friends, let's celebrate. Let's eat, drink and be merry. Let's dance naked around the campfire and make love amongst the bluebells. And if you think that's hot, just wait until June, flaming June, when I'll be back to celebrate Alban Heffin. That's the summer solstice. But for now, I have some very serious carousing and cavorting to do. So from here, deep in the heart of the wildwoods of Dartmoor, I'll bid you a very hearty and a very horny hail and farewell. Now thank the Lord and Lady in all their power and might, oh, for they bring life to England and love by day and night, oh. In merry England to the green woods we do go, Hallantoe, jolly rum below, we were up long before the day, oh, to welcome in the summer, to welcome in the May, oh. For summer is a-comin' in and winter's gone away, oh.